detail report has a much more detailed time of like first keystroke of when somebody starts typing, what time officers arrive. Every single time is documented very closely, correct?
Correct.
Now, would you disagree if I told you that the phone was picked up from the 911 caller at 8:01 and 15 seconds?
I can't disagree with that.
Okay, and I know that you don't have this right in front of you, but because of some redactions, I just have to walk you through these times.
Okay.
Would you agree or disagree, or would you agree that the first unit was assigned at 8:04 and 28 seconds?
Yes.
And that would be squad 330 was en route at 8:04 and 28 seconds.
Correct.
Then 320 took the call at 8:05 and 11 seconds and indicated that they were en route. So very short time, right?
Very short time.
Would you agree that if I told you that squad 320 arrived at Cup Foods at 8:08 and 10 seconds?
Correct.
Squad 330 being assigned to Derek Chauvin, Tu Tao. Squad 830 being assigned to Peter Chang of the Minneapolis Park Police. Squad 320 being assigned to Officers King and Lane.
Correct.
Now, in terms of
We're gonna go back to old school methods and print out some paper. We'll get there.
to your honor.
To them to speed this process up.
Mr. Nelson?
That's fine, Your Honor.
All right.
So for purposes of stipulation, EMS code 2 for a mouth injury was called at 8:20 and 11 seconds. EMS code 3 from squad 330 was called out at 8:21 and 35 seconds. The arrival time of EMS is 8:28 and 36 seconds. Am I reading that correct? So 8:28 and 36 seconds, EMS arrives, correct?
Correct.
All right. And then EMS didn't stay on scene, right?
No.
They left. And they indicated that they went to 36th and Park, right?
Correct.
And they didn't go to 36th and Park, did they?
EMS? That's where I believe they were.
Okay. So to your belief, they went to 36th and Park because that's what they called out, correct?
Correct.
Do you recall fire having trouble finding EMS at 36th and Park?
Yes.
Okay. Because they didn't go to 36th and Park, they went to 36th in Chicago, correct? Or do you not know?
I actually don't know. After those comments, I did not know that's where they went.
Okay. So ultimately, there was some confusion between fire and EMS about where EMS actually was. And you heard that radio chatter.
I asked the questions on Metcom, which is reflected in there, and then relayed the information that I had of 36th and Park, which was also added into the call. Other than that, I didn't know their locations.
Okay. Now, ultimately, you said that you were watching this video, and you were still watching your rest of your work, right?
Correct. I was actively still working.
So you look up for a couple seconds, look down, do your work, look up, look down, from time to time throughout the course of this incident.
You're correct.
All right. And so it's fair to say that your attention wasn't necessarily focused directly on the cameras and what you were seeing.
Correct.
But it was concerning enough to you what you did see that you called Sergeant Pluger of the Minneapolis Police Department 3rd Precinct, right?
I was concerned. Yes, because of the time of the length of the incident had not changed.
Okay. So you called, we listened to your video, or the audio of your call with Sergeant Pluger, and you called Sergeant Pluger at 8:30 and 44 seconds.
Is that the time of the call?
Correct. 20, 30, 44.
Yes, and that's the first time we spoke.
So the first time you spoke was at 8:30 and 44 seconds. And in fact, during that phone call, you must have looked back at the camera and saw that they were all gone at that point, right?
Correct.
Because you said something to the effect of, oh wait, they're all gone, right?
Correct.
And your time that you had called into the MetLink was at 8:31 and 12 seconds. Does that sound right to you?
For the Metcom hail?
Right.
Correct.
Then ultimately, Squad 330 indicated that they were going out to check on the status, and it says AP of the AP. That's something that Squad 330 typed into the system,
Correct.
and that was at 8:55:08, right?
Correct. Mm-hmm.
Now, again, you were concerned because of the length of the time that you saw this incident unfolding, right?
Correct.
And I think you said that at one point you thought maybe the camera had even frozen,
Correct.
right? Because it seemed to be kind of prolonged, right? You can't hear anything on that video, could you?
No.
You had no idea what officers were talking about amongst each other or what they were talking about with others who were present, right?
You are correct.
And again, You, not being a Minneapolis police officer, are not familiar with the use of force requirements, correct?
You are correct.
All right. But you are aware that when uses of force are made or used, sometimes you'll hear dispatch, the officer call for a sergeant because they need someone to review a use of force, right?
Right.
And you, at the time you called Officer Pluger or Sergeant Pluger, you hadn't received any sort of a dispatch from Squad 320, Squad 330, or Squad 830, hey, we need a sergeant to review the use of force.
You are correct.
Now, every single time the Minneapolis Police Department uses force, do they go through the dispatch process?
Of over using the radio,
Well, to get to the sergeant to report the use of force.
as far as I know.
So you don't know whether someone called up Sergeant Pluger on his cell phone and said, hey, we need you down here.
Correct.
And so, because at 8:30, when you called Sergeant Pluger, you had not yet heard that dispatch, right?
Correct.
And sometimes when a use of force incident occurs, that call may be to the sergeant to review the use of force, may be fairly quick, and sometimes it may take a few minutes, right?
It's true.
And
Yes.
it just depends on the circumstances and the situation, right?
Correct.
Now, you indicated that there were these TVs. There are more cameras within the city of Minneapolis than 6 or 9 TVs worth, right?
Yes.
Are the televisions, like, are they split screen where you can see 5 or 6 cameras at one time, or is it one big TV with one big camera?
It is split screens, and then you can go into different camera views.
Okay. Just looking back through my notes. When you watched the video here in court, you said that it was similar to the video that you had watched previously, right?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that the video that we just watched in court seemed to be moving very slowly in terms of kind of choppy
Pace.
pace?
Yes.
So an incident that you watched it in real time, subject to a few seconds of delay for the signal to get through, right?
Correct.
So I'm gonna see if it makes a difference if we look at it on my computer. If we could, this is Exhibit 11. Yep, it should be plugged in. Can we put it up? There we go.
Once it wasn't me.
It's day one, Your Honor. So. All right. So now when you watch the same video, it seems to be moving in a little faster time.
Correct.
Because these cameras actually transmit real-time occurrences.
Correct.
And you said that you first kind of took notice based on your estimate at 8:17. So I'm gonna just skip forward here a little. This is 8:17 and 38 seconds. Back it up here a little. So this is 8:17 and about 30 seconds, and this is when you first sort of took notice of these cameras on the squad car, right?
Correct.
Or at the call center. Now, in terms of the pacing of this, is this more consistent with real time?
Yes.
And one of the things you ultimately told Agent Peterson was how you noticed how the squad car was rocking back and forth during the struggle.
Correct.
And if you could just watch this and tell me when you start to see that happen.
Well, it's currently shaking. And now currently shaking.
And by rocking back and forth, the car is actually going forward, a little backwards, and it's happening over and over and over again, right?
Correct.
And it's happening pretty much consistently during the course of the interaction of the officers, right?
Correct.
And that back door is opening and closing on the officers, right?
Correct.
Now, the other things that you notice when you look at this intersection, this is a pretty busy intersection, right?
Correct.
Lots of cars coming by, lots of people wandering about. This was May 25th, pretty nice spring day in the middle of, or not long after being cooped up inside here.
Correct.
So now ultimately, you observed and you saw these officers using force, right? Or what you believe to be force.
With taking him out of the squad?
Right. Or putting them in the squad.
Yes.
And there was, what you observed was a struggle between officers and the person they were arresting, right?
Correct.
And that the struggle ultimately resulted in that squad shaking back and forth.
Correct.
And when you ultimately called Sergeant Pluger, you said, I don't know if this is a use of force or not, right?
Correct.
And Sergeant Pluger told you that it could be just a takedown,
Correct.
and a takedown wouldn't require a supervisor.
Correct.
Ultimately, you know that Sergeant Pluger responded to the scene, right? And is that a, yes?
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. And that's confirmed in the computer-aided dispatch or the incident detail report, right?
Correct.
Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Frank, can you redirect?
Mr. Gray, just a few follow-up questions. I'm going to put 151 back up on the screen for you because I think in the questioning, I think counsel had asked you about MetLink, I think was the term he used. I just want to clarify that 2 points. So if we could put. And I want to just clarify those times as well. So if we go down to the time of 20:31:12, and if we could just expand that out so we could all see it a little better, please. I think counsel asked you about this 20:31:12, and that being the Metcom call. Having looked at this, what time was your Metcom call?
So The information I added was at 2033 for the Metcom. That is our resource that we use radio to radio in the metro, so we can be quick and be able to get information back and forth.
So that 203302, what is the purpose of that entry right there? What are you reflecting?
I'm asking basically what is the reason why fire was added. I got on there and asked, what do you need fire for? Because there were no additional comments of saying why they were needed code 3.
And so what you've typed in there via Metcom is, and you sent out, yes,
Yes.
is to tell what?
The information that I got via Metcom was that EMS would like the fire department for patient condition at the requested location of Park and 36th.
So that's the answer you got, is that that EMS wanted them to go there.
Correct.
And so that was information you received before 203302, but you sent out at that time.
Correct.
Okay.
There's the time of me typing and putting it in there.
When you have referred to your work duties that day, you can take it down, thank you, as Channel 1, how does that signify you from other dispatchers?
We have 2 other channels. There's Channel 2, which is in charge of the north side, and then there's Channel 3, who has downtown in the 5th precinct, and then we have a relief dispatcher who's there to help us when we take our breaks or when we need to get up for any given reason.
So when you dispatch over Channel 1, does that go citywide or just precinct-wide?
Just on those 2 precincts, I have my own dedicated channel.
Having been questioned by opposing counsel about your call, as you sit here today, have you changed your mind about the reasons why you called Sergeant Pleager when you did?
No.
You were asked about the number of screens that you have up, looking at all this, and still being able to see what was going on in this call from the city camera. That's been your work setup for about 7 years, correct?
Correct.
Something you do on a daily basis is keep track of all these moving parts.
Yes.
And that video that's up there, when it's not sending out work messages, can put up these city cameras, correct?
Correct.
But you don't control that.
Correct.
Do you know who or what office controls that?
It can change. Sometimes the supervisors at our center can pull up cameras. Like I said, sometimes we put them on there just to see what the weather is. Especially if we have inclement weather, if there's storms coming through, we can see actually how severe they are when people are calling in. Sometimes they put them up for incidences if we can see anything, and those cameras can be taken away from us to the fact that the base, which is the precinct desk, has control over them and can move them to wherever they need to when they need to.
So what you're saying is that those cameras, where they're pointed and when they're available to you, can be controlled by members of the police department.
Correct.
And in your 6 years by this date and 7 years now, it's a rare incident for somebody to put an incident up on the screen like that.
Correct.
I have nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, Ms. Gary. You may step down.
Thank you, sir.
Statement call its next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. Your Honor, the state calls Alicia Euler.
Stand right behind your chair to start. Raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yeah.
All right, have a seat. And just to make sure that we can hear you, we're going to have you take your mask off. I'm going to leave mine on, but and before you begin, and so we can test out the microphone, could you give us your full name, spelling each of your names?
Like my whole name?
Yep.
Alicia Marie Euler, ALISHA MARIEE OYLER.
And I think I'm going to have you pull up just a little closer to the microphone. Perfect. Thank you. Mr. Slisher.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. And Ms. Euler, the key I'm going to give you is that when you speak, you should be able to hear your own voice over the speakers, all right? So just lean close enough to the microphone to be able to do that, all right? So first, I'm going to ask you a few questions so we can get to know you a little better. How old are you?
23.
23. And are you originally from Minnesota?
No.
Where did you grow up?
No, I'm from Arizona.
You can kind of pull back. You're actually speaking.
I'm sorry. I don't like this.
Yeah, I just need you to speak closer.
Okay, are we good? Okay.
Thank you. And you can even pretend you're yelling at me if you want to, or make your voice hit the back of the room, all right?
Okay.
So you said that you grew up in Arizona, is that right?
Yep.
What part of Arizona?
Just Arizona.
The whole state?
Yep.
Okay. When did you make your way over to Minnesota?
I don't know. A while ago.
Were you still in high school?
Yeah.
Did you attend any schools when you moved to Minnesota?
Yeah.
Where did you go to school?
Red Wing.
In Red Wing, Minnesota? Where else did you go?
St. Paul.
St. Paul? Okay. You completed through high school?